Before we begin, I want to take a moment to honor the cultures behind the stories we are about to explore. The tales shared here come from many peoples, lands, and traditions. I do not change these stories to fit modern expectations or to align with today's social standards. Instead, I present them as they were told, sometimes beautiful, sometimes harsh, sometimes challenging. We are not here to judge the past, but to understand it, to listen, to learn, and to honor the ancestors who carried these stories forward. We also share stories from various religious traditions. These are presented in their historical and spiritual context, with respect for their beliefs that they represent. Every culture deserves respect, context, and acknowledgement, and this space is dedicated to doing exactly that. August 2nd, the Holy Fire. Story 1, The Eternal Flame of Ahura Mazda. Across the windswept plateaus of ancient Persia, where snow-capped mountains overlooked fertile valleys and the vast deserts shimmered beneath the sun, there burned a flame that was never allowed to die. Day and night, through changing kingdoms, passing generations, and the rise and fall of empires, devoted priests carefully tended the sacred fire that the Atash Baram, the greatest grade Zoroastrian fire temple. To an outside observer, it might have appeared to be an ordinary flame, yet to followers of the prophet Zarathustra, known in Greek as Zoroaster, it represented one of the purest visible symbols of Ahura Mazda, the wise Lord who created the universe in goodness, truth, and light. Fire itself was never worshipped as a god. Rather, it served as a living reminder of divine wisdom, illuminating darkness without prejudice and consuming impurity without becoming impure itself. Before entering the temple, worshippers washed themselves carefully, covering their mouths with a clean cloth so that even their breath would not defile the sacred flame. They approached in quiet reverence, offering prayers not to the fire, but through its brilliant light, allowing its steady glow to draw their thoughts toward truth, righteousness, and the divine order known as Asha. The eternal fire became a visible promise that goodness could continue burning even when surrounded by darkness. Outside the temple walls, kingdoms rose and fell, invaders crossed the land, dynasties vanished into history. Yet within the sanctuary, the flame continued its silent vigil, reminding every generation that truth need not shout to endure. Priests fetted only the cleanest, driest wood, carefully removing ash with silver tools so the fire remained pure. Every movement surrounding it reflected discipline, respect, and intentional care. The ancient Persians understood that purity was not merely physical. Every truthful word strengthened the flame within the soul. Every honest action added light to the world. Every deception allowed darkness to spread. Thus, tending the sacred fire became a powerful image for tending one's own character. A neglected flame eventually fades. One faithfully nourished grows brighter with each passing day. This understanding extended far beyond the temple itself. Families kept hearth fires burning within their homes, seeing them as reminders that divine order began not only in sacred places, but in ordinary daily life. Kindness around the dinner table, honesty in busyness, compassion towards strangers, and faithfulness within the family all become ways of feeding an invisible flame that no wind could extinguish. Even today, after more than 2.5 millennia, Zoroastrian communities continue to care for these sacred fires with remarkable devotion. Their quiet light has survived conquests, migrations, and centuries of change, proclaiming the same simple truth it always has. Goodness endures not because it is the loudest force in the world, but because someone chooses, day after day, to keep the flame alive. Story 2, The Beltane Fires That Welcome Summer. Long before church bells echoed across the hills of Scotland and Ireland, the ancient Celtic peoples measured that turning of the year not by calendars, but by fire. As the last chill of winter loosened its grip upon the land and the first warmth of summer approached, villages prepared for one of the most important festivals of the year, Beltane. Celebrated on the night before the first day of May, Beltane marked the beginning of the bright half of the year. When livestock returned to the open pastures, crops began their season of growth, and the earth seemed to awaken beneath longer days. Yet before this new season could begin, the people believed both themselves and their animals should pass through the cleansing power of sacred flame. Upon prominent hillsides, druids and community leaders gathered great piles of carefully chosen wood. As darkness settled across the valleys, the first spark was struck, and soon towering bonfires climbed into the night sky, their golden light visible for miles across the countryside. Families extinguished every fire within their own homes so that, for a brief moment, the entire community rested in darkness. Then, from the great Beltane blaze, fresh flames were carried back to every hearth, relighting homes with what was believed to be renewed and blessed fire. It was as though the whole land began again from a single sacred source. Farmers drove their cattle between two great bonfires or through the drifting smoke, believing the flames would cleanse any sickness and protect the herds throughout the coming season. People walked around the fires in prayer, sang songs beneath the stars, danced until sunrise, and leapt across the glowing embers, not as reckless sport, but as an act of blessing, courage, and hope for health, fertility, and good fortune. The fire did not merely destroy, it purified. It marked the crossing from one season to another, carrying away the lingering shadow of winter while welcoming the abundance of summer. Even the smoke itself was considered sacred, drifting across fields, orchards, and villages like an invisible blessing upon the land. The ancient Celts understood that every new beginning benefits from a moment of intentional cleansing. Before planting comes preparing the soil. Before harvest comes tending the fields. Before stepping into a new season of life, there is a wisdom in releasing what no longer belongs. The Beltane fire embodies this truth. Their warmth invited the people to leave fear, hardship, and old burdens behind as they entered a season filled with possibility. Though centuries have passed, Beltane celebrations continue in many places today through festivals, music, dance, and ceremonial fires that honor both cultural heritage and the rhythms of the natural world. The flames still remind those who gather around them that renewal is rarely accidental. It begins when people willingly step from the old season into the new, carrying forward what helps life flourish. Story 3. The Homa fire that carries every offering. As dawn's first light spread across the temples and villages of ancient India, priests carefully prepared a sacred altar unlike any other. It held no statue carved from stone, no image fashioned from gold. At its center rested only a carefully kindled fire. This ceremony, known as Homa or Havan, has been practiced for thousands of years as one of Hinduism's oldest and most sacred rituals. Long before the first offering was made, every detail was prepared with intention. The altar was purified, sacred woods were arranged, clarified butter, known as ghee, was readied, and fragrant herbs, grains, flowers, and spices were gathered with reverence. As the fire awakened, priests began chanting ancient Vedic mantras, their voices rising and falling in rhythms preserved across countless generations. One by one, offerings were gently placed into the flames. Ghee hissed softly as it touched the glowing fire. Fragrant smoke curled upward into the open sky, and every offering became a visible act of surrender. To those gathered, nothing was being destroyed. Everything was being transformed. Fire was understood as a divine messenger, carrying prayers, gratitude, and devotion from the earthly realm into the presence of the gods. What entered the flames did not disappear. It crossed a sacred threshold. Yet the ritual spoke not only about gifts laid upon the altar. The ancient sages taught that every person carries invisible burdens that cannot be seen by the eye. Fear, anger, jealousy, pride, regret, and attachment. During Homa, worshippers were encouraged to imagine placing these unseen weights into the fire alongside the visible offerings. As the flames consumed the wood and herbs, they symbolically consumed whatever prevented the heart from living in harmony with Dharma, the sacred order of righteous living. Fire became both purifier and teacher. It accepted everything without preference, reducing each offering to glowing light, fragrant smoke, and fine ash. Kings and farmers, scholars and children all approached the same flame. Before a sacred fire, every human heart stood equally in need of purification. The ceremony also reflected one of Hinduism's deepest understandings, that life itself is sustained through offering. The sun offers its light to the earth. Rivers offer water to the fields. Trees offer fruit, shade, and shelter. Parents offer care to their children. Teachers offer wisdom to their students. The universe flourishes because every part continuously gives itself for the good of another. Homa became a living reminder that generosity is woven into the fabric of creation itself. When the final prayers were spoken and the fire slowly settled into glowing embers, those present often carried a small portion of the sacred ash upon their foreheads as a quiet reminder that all things eventually return to the earth. But every act offered with sincerity leaves a blessing behind. Thus, the fire did not simply receive sacrifice. It revealed the profound truth that whatever is freely given in love is never truly lost, but transformed into something greater than itself. Story 4. Vesta in the Flame That Guarded Rome. In the very heart of ancient Rome, where senators debated the future of an empire and the triumphal processions marched beneath towering arches, there burned a quiet flame that few citizens ever saw directly, yet upon which they believed the fate of the entire civilization depended. It rested within the circular temple of Vesta, where the sacred fire of the goddess Vesta glowed day and night without interruption. Unlike mighty gods who wielded thunderbolts or conquered monsters, Vesta possessed no dramatic myths of war or adventure. Her power lived in something far more ordinary and, perhaps because of that, far more enduring. She was the guardian of the hearth, the keeper of the home, the quiet protector of family, hospitality, and the sacred center around which community gathered. Every Roman household maintained its own hearth fire, but the flame within Vesta's temple belonged to everyone. It represented the shared life of the Roman people themselves. If that fire ever went out, many believed it foretold disaster for the city. Because of this, the responsibility of tending it fell to the Vestal virgins, a small order of priestesses chosen as children to dedicate decades of their lives to the service of the sacred flame. Their duties demanded remarkable discipline. Each day they carefully added clean wood, swept away ash, and watched over the fire with unwavering attention so that no neglect would allow it to die. The task appeared simple, yet the Romans understood that civilizations rarely collapse because of one great catastrophe alone. More often they fade when countless small responsibilities are equally abandoned. The eternal flame therefore became a living lesson that what sustains a people is not only heroic deeds performed upon battlefields, but faithful care given to ordinary things every single day. A meal shared around the hearth, a promise kept, a guest welcomed with kindness, a child taught wisdom, fire made all of these possible. It warmed homes through winter, cooked bread for hungry families, and gathered generations together beneath one roof. Vesta's flame transformed the humble hearth into the beating heart of Roman life. It reminded the people that strength begins at home before it is ever seen in the marketplace or the Senate. Every year during the festival of Vestalia, Roman women walked barefoot to the temple, bringing offerings in gratitude for the blessings of home and family. Even the busiest streets grew quieter as citizens remembered that prosperity deepened not merely upon wealth or military power, but upon households where generosity, order, and devotion were faithfully practiced. Though the temples of ancient Rome eventually fell silent, the lessons of Vesta's fire still burns. A home is built not by stone alone, but by daily acts of care. Communities endure because ordinary people quietly tend the relationships entrusted to them. Like the sacred hearth, love must be fed if it is to remain warm. Left unattended, even the brightest flame slowly fades. Tended with patience and devotion, it becomes a light that welcomes generation after generation home. Daily thread for August 2nd. What keeps my flame burning? Yesterday, we watched fire come into the world. Today, we discover why humanity has spent thousands of years protecting it. Across continents separated by oceans and centuries, people came to see the fire was more than a useful tool. It became a symbol of everything that must be carefully tended if it is to endure. In the sacred fire temples of Zoroastrianism, an eternal flame reminded worshippers that truth is not something won once and forgotten. It must be faithfully guarded generation after generation. During the Celtic festival of Beltane, communities extinguished every hearth before rekindling them from one great bonfire, remembering that every new season begins with renewal. In the ancient Homa ceremony of India, offerings disappeared into the sacred fire only to be transformed into prayer, teaching that what is given with sincerity is never truly lost. In the quiet temple of Vesta, Rome entrusted its future to a single flame that symbolized the life of every home, every family, and every citizen. Together, these traditions reveal a remarkable truth. The holiest fire is not the one that burns the brightest, but the one that is cared for the longest. A neglected fire slowly fades. One log at a time, one careful act at a time, it either grows or disappears. The same is true for nearly everything that matters. Trust is built through countless honest conversations. A friendship grows through small moments of faithfulness. Wisdom develops through daily learning. Love flourishes because people continue choosing one another, long after the excitement of beginnings has passed. We often wait for extraordinary moments to shape our lives, yet the ancients quietly remind us that character is usually forged in ordinary routines. Every day we decide what we will feed, and what we will allow to grow cold. Fear or courage, bitterness or forgiveness, selfishness or generosity. Every choice becomes another piece of wood placed upon one fire or another. As we move into the new month, perhaps the question is not simply, what inspires me? A spark may ignite in an instant. The deeper question is, what am I willing to tend? What truth deserves my consistency? What relationship deserves my time? What gift has been entrusted to me that only I can keep alive? Fire has always asked something of those who gather around it. It offers warmth, light, and transformation, but only to those willing to care for it. Perhaps our own lives are much the same. The brightest flame is rarely the one that blazes for a moment. It is the one quietly tended through every ordinary day until its light becomes a beacon for others.